No, everybody's very quiet. Quiet, microphone shy.
We're going to give 5 minutes grace, or do you want to start at exactly 3 o'clock?
We will see how quickly we can get into the room, but it would be good to start on time if we can. But we can give 5 minutes grace if you'd prefer that.
No, I got no preferences.
It makes this really funny, makes me look all blurry.
Afternoon, Martin.
Hi.
You well?
Yep.
Good, good.
Good afternoon, Martin. My name is Marius Erasmus. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, crystal clear.
Okay, great.
Hey, Martin.
Hi. We're just admitting people who are all in the waiting room.
Yep.
Okay, the people are still piling into the session. So I'll give it another 1 or 2 minutes and we will then kick off.
Let me put the next slide up and everybody can sit and look at it and ponder it because it's a quiz.
Okay.
So guys, while you're waiting, while we're putting people in the waiting room, see if you can guess this company.
HP.
Yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to get started. It's 3 o'clock. So, good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. I'm Tanya Lamb from SAPIX, and I am pleased to welcome you to this afternoon's webinar. A few housekeeping tips before we get started. The webinar is being recorded and will be made available on our website after the event. Please mute yourself for the duration of the webinar so that there is no noise interference. We know that working from home and working remotely comes with all sorts of new challenges, like children and dogs and cats. So that's quite the normal, but they do make a noise from time to time. Raise hands for questions or post them in the chat. Please make your name visible so we know who you are. We keep an attendance register for CPD points, so it's useful to know who you are. Sometimes we end up with strange names like HP 101 or something like that. It's useful to know who we are, who we have in the room. So this afternoon, we are going to be looking at what's new in the world of warehousing with Martin Bailey. We are very grateful for him for his time and doing this webinar for us. We'll be looking at what's new and trending in the world of warehouse management. Martin will cover everything from new ideas, technologies, management systems, strategies, and what the warehouse of the future will look like. So to give you some context to Martin's experience, he's implemented over 500 warehouse facilities in South Africa, Europe, and the Middle East, and his clients include the who's who of industry. So we could refer to him as the warehousing wizard. So Martin, I'd again like to thank you for your time, and I'm going to hand over to you to kick off.
Thanks a million, Tanya. So I put this first slide up. I thought, guys, here's an interesting quiz. Company that invented grammar checkers, electronic dictionaries, laptop word processors, started building PDAs, and you're going to all say IBM or Microsoft or Apple or so on. Well, the interesting one is, oops, get this thing to, there we go. It's a company called Smith Corona, who are the best typewriter manufacturer in the world. And they still hold that dubious privilege of being the best typewriter guys in the world. They had a compact typewriter with nice disk drives, clear displays, spell check, thesaurus. And if you compare their unit, there's the Smith Corona PWP, the last machine they made. Clearly they haven't made any for the last 20 years. And you compare it to the Commodore 64. And when I was teaching at Wits University, we got our first Commodore 64 back in 1982, and we were very excited. But if you look at the size of that Commodore 64 and you look at the Smith Corona, which got a built-in printer, does word processing, did spell check, none of which a Commodore 64 or Apple, when it brought it in 1983, did. And you got to say, wow, this was a far better machine than any computer. The other interesting thing is their main opposition was a company called Remington Rand. They brought out the very first computer in the world, called the ENIAC, which was in the States. They also owned some other very good companies like Acer, which they sold because they decided that computers were illogical and would never grow because they just were too big and too cumbersome. And I think what it says, it's not the strongest of the species that survives, and this will be a theme throughout. Not the most intelligent. They were the strongest and they were the most intelligent. They were the Kodaks of the world, but it's the most adaptable, and they weren't very adaptable. Before I start on warehousing, let's just look at the supply chain. We started with the functional supply chains in silos. We've still got lots of customers with those. Then we started having functional excellence. We had good buying, we had good warehousing, we had good transport. Then we started integrating. Then I remember SAPEX conferences, many of them that just talked about collaboration. We've now moved one step further, and we're looking at on-demand supply chain. I want it now. I want it this second. And that's really the new version of the supply chain. Just have a look at this Amazon fulfillment centers across the states, 100 warehouses in the state. And the only reason why they've got 100 warehouses is because people order from Amazon and say, why haven't you delivered within an hour or two? If you're in Amazon Prime, same day delivery. And this is where the market's moved. And this is what our warehouses have to cater for. I want it now. I don't want it just now. I don't want it tomorrow. I want it now. You might recognize it if any of you have watched Willy Wonka. So the on-time in full expectations have changed. Not only on-time in full, on-time now. On top of that, we've got massive SKU proliferation. That's an Amazon warehouse. If you want to buy mayonnaise, there are 200 varieties of mayonnaise. Whatever you want to buy, people expect a large range. Amazon, 598 million products. If you think your warehouse has got problems, they have 12 million SKU in stock. And of course, the internet's growing nicely. Retail, e-commerce, going to change our world. And I think COVID's going to impact it significantly. Big growth. I've ordered some stuff from Yappy Chef and Loot, and I'm getting 15-day deliveries. That's how bad it's got. Those guys don't know how to cater for the increased volume. So COVID will certainly change our horizon. The warehouses will be different. Pick and Pay are now offering this click and collect. Hey guys, you order on the internet, drive through the car, flash your order number, and they'll come and put it in the boot of your car. You don't even have to walk into the shop. Whoops. So COVID will change fashions, they'll change life, they'll change lots of things. Certainly the way we do things will be different. But it's still all about the customer. He still wants it on time, he wants it in full, he wants the right quantity, he wants proper administration, he wants it safe, and he wants to be treated with respect. And that's something I think that we're not very good at across the industry. Let's take a look inside the warehouses, what's going to happen. We're going to see more automation, and clearly I'll talk about that lots. Better systems to drive workers, better warehouse management systems, better labor management, better interfaces, better storage, better picking, all that good stuff. And I'm going to talk very briefly about traditional kit, which is going higher, faster, lasting, better controls. And then I'll talk about lots of new stuff. So for traditional kit, we're looking at going faster, more accurately, more efficiently. Here you can see somebody picking with voice. She's got some automatic controls that moves the picker forward. Nothing revolutionary, been around 10 years, but we're driving this picker to work faster every day. An interesting one on the left. We're now, by carrying 6 rolltainers with us at once, we can pick more orders. Maybe we can pick 6 orders all at once, as compared to the traditional system of picking 1 order at a time. And that improves efficiency of existing equipment. More controls, more efficient, better scanning, all those good, nice things. And you've seen all the stuff over and over. Cleaner, better managed, more structured warehouses. I'll get to some really exciting stuff just now. This is quite an interesting one. She's carrying 15 bins at the same time, and she's picking 15 different orders at the same time. How much more efficient is that, to be able to pick so many orders all at once? With improving efficiency is just a better trolley. This is a put-to-light trolley. Pick, as you go past the product, you scan it, the lights come on the trolley, tells you what to do. So all this stuff is making humans faster, voice picking and so on, all the different types of picking systems available to us. Track and trace and picking. Here's a pick to light. So we make humans faster by flashing up a light and saying to him, pick 3 of those, flash up 3, and he picks 3 and he says, I've done it. Or voice picking, more control, pick faster, control it better. And then the future of all of this is picking by glasses. Lots of guys picking with glasses, these bringing out the stuff at the moment. Nothing commercially really viable, but it's slowly coming. Where you actually create some augmented reality, and it'll guide you to your path, tell you where to go, tell you what to pick, flash up on your glasses, how many. All available technology, not commercially really viable, but it'll be here within another year. Here's an interesting idea for picking small orders. If you're in the internet or e-commerce, we do this at, for example, at MTN, where we pick 50 orders all at once. We've got 50 little pigeonholes. We bring our order to 50 pigeonholes and we throw everything into the pigeonholes, scan them in, by order. So now we can have even 2 people picking the same order, which is great. And you can pick much faster because you're picking in bulk and you're doing a sort. Put it in the pigeonhole, and when everything's scanned into the pigeonhole, you push a button, goes green. On the other side, the guy can take it out. So there you can see a typical picking system with a pick wall. On the other side of the pick wall, for example, at MTN, we've got a bagging machine. This is an auto bagging machine. We throw the phone in. It prints the label on the bagging machine. It automatically closes the bag, and all the operator has to do is throw it on a conveyor. And it's even possible to have a robot to put it on the conveyor. Is the future about goods to man? We can pick about 6 times faster by bringing the goods to the person and letting them pick. Here you can see she's picking from a bin into those little openings. And she can pick lots of orders at once, and she can pick much faster. 1,000 orders an hour, not impossible. The old-fashioned goods to man was vertical carousels, and there's plenty of those around. Even these guys have now got new types of carousels. There's the carousel which picks more, picks bigger things, picks faster, brings it to the operator faster. Here's a perfect example. Amazon, they use a system, Kiva system, which are these little robots at the bottom. Those robots bring the shelves to the picker. The picker picks, and it takes the shelves back again. Easy to install in existing warehouse, and that's one of the big advantages that Amazon has. When you're opening 50 new warehouses a year, you can't get beautiful, nice buildings that are super high. So they go for very simple technology that is quite low tech, other than these little robots, bringing the goods to the picker. There's another example. These Kiva robots bringing the goods to the picker. And there's the shelf that moves around. This is a little multi-shuttle, various shuttles which bring goods to the picker, and these can run at 1,000 picks or bin movements per hour. So huge volumes. Liked by the pharmaceutical industry, a couple of them running in South Africa. That's the end of the aisle where the vertical elevator drops this bin down. That's a mini load system. These large cranes run in, fetch the bins, bring them out, and do the same thing, but much slower. And they bring the goods to the man. And can pick multiple orders at once, put them in the bins. And you can even have a camera which checks to see that you picked the right thing. If you pick the wrong quantity, I assume it puts 50,000 volts through you or does something. Here's an interesting one. Sorry. So this is brand new. I saw it at a show a little while ago, just before they banned us from going to shows. And to me, absolutely brilliant. So these are little robots that'll go and fetch your goods. You don't need conveyors. You don't need anything. It brings your goods out. You can pick, and the little robot will take your goods back again. And you can start with 1 or 2 robots and just keep adding as you need. So if you need more, you just buy a few more robots. And you can do the same thing with full pallets. You can bring them out, pick them, put them back again. Use some sort of conveyor, move the pallets around, pick, put everything back in place. Or you can get an automated guided vehicle, which is a driverless forklift, and we'll talk more about these just now, to move stuff around. It's an interesting piece of equipment used in a grocery warehouse. This one's out of Austria. And what happens is you've got roll tanders all along the side here. It's a piece of equipment for a company called Knapp. And the guy picks up a pallet and he drives along and he puts 3 in that one, 2 in that one, 4 in that one, 5 in that one, and he does his picking that way. So he can get 1,000 cases an hour instead of 150 that they would normally get. Put the A volume items into this system, and then the B's and C's, the slow volume items, into conventional picking. This is very interesting. So I'm saying there's automation there to help you. Now, I don't know if any of you have been to Builder's Warehouse and you try to find something. Nobody will help you and you're all walking around scratching your head, trying to fathom out what's going on. Well, this is the equivalent of Builder's Warehouse in the States, a company called Lowe's. And you can borrow a little robot and it'll walk with you, keep you company. And it'll tell you anything you want to know. If you want to know where left-hand screwdrivers are, take you to the aisle, it'll point you there, it'll tell you details about each manufacturer, and it does everything that the shop assistant should be doing. Here's a really exciting example. Somebody who's done something different with traditional old-fashioned technology. This company, TJ Morris, run these trolleys, these things here, through the warehouse at multi-level, so they can pick a lot of product. And the picker walks up and down the aisle and he picks into that trolley. And if you look at the trolley, it's got 2 roll timers, place here for the empty pallet. And this little spot there is for waste. So it's got a place for everything, and this trolley runs throughout the warehouse. When it gets to a spot that it says pick that, it shines a light on that spot, so you can't pick the wrong thing. It even has a screen on board, you can't see it here, which says pick 9. You grab 9 or however many there is, and that's the end of the warehouse, where it ends up in dispatch, all those trolleys. So traditional technology, nothing too fancy, but being used quite cleverly. So traditional equipment has certainly evolved. I mean, just look at cell phones, how they've changed from that to that to that to that. That's the newest Samsung. I guess that's what we'll have in a year's time, and that's what we'll have in 5 years' time. So you're going to ask, what's the next evolution of equipment? Where are we going to? Forklifts without drivers. Now, this interesting one, also from Knapp. These automated guided vehicles, forklifts without drivers, actually talk to each other. They have what we call swarm intelligence. So they'll talk to each other, and they'll talk to the mainframe. If there's something stuck in the way, the next one will find its own path. It's got no wire guidance or anything. It uses lasers to find out where it is. Not only that, if it's on its way to put it away in the warehouse, which is here, and you suddenly decide, no, I don't want to put it in the warehouse, I want to take it to dispatch, it can change its mind while it's driving. Now try to do that with a forklift driver. Here's a narrow aisle turret truck without a driver. Another sort of truck without a driver. And a conventional reach truck without a driver. So we can take the drivers off most machines. Just to show you that it's not limited to warehouses, this is Rotterdam Port, where you can take your containers around without drivers. And one step further, this is the new ship thing which is being launched, which doesn't have a driver either. Totally cabin, staff-free, nobody on the ship. Pick up containers and take them to the other end of the world. So let's go into our new and latest warehouse. And you can come with me and see what it's going to be like in the warehouse of the future. Do we need you? Or we need humans? This is a machine called an A-frame, been around about 20 years. It's like an enormous cigarette vending machine. You fill it up, and it will do 60,000 units an hour in pharmaceuticals, automatically dispensing. This is a picking robot, which will wander down the aisle and pick everything you need. There you can see it, grabs whatever you want, and will pick it. And there's a conventional picking robot, which will pick from a bin over here, put it into an order here, and then the order will drop down when it's ready. This is a crane type, a gantry crane type robot, which will pick orders of any size and shape. For example, you can use it for picking cold drinks. You could pick from here to there, to there. So you put a pallet down and it'll build up an order. At the end of the day, all your orders are built up however you want, and you can stage them. So this is a staging area for dispatch. So you don't have to have lanes and cages and all sorts of things like that. You leave it under the crane. The crane picks up the order as you need it and when you need it and put it in your truck. And these things can transport anything, anywhere in the warehouse using laser guidance. This is a monorail. So it's hung from the roof. It can transport and it can receive and dispatch. And the greatest advantage of the monorail is that it can go uphill. So if you want to go across the road, you can go up the hill, over the road, and back down again. all automated guided vehicles. Now, it was quite interesting. I was at a conference in Austria where they make these automated guided vehicles, and chatting to one of the guys, he says in 5 years' time, that was a year ago, in 5 years' time, these automated guided vehicles will be cheaper than a forklift. And that's logical, I'm sure. There's nothing to them. They're simple, no place for the, don't have to have all the safety features that a driver has. Let's look at stuff like sorting. If you want to sort different stuff. The in thing at the moment is these bag sorters. Everybody's selling them and everybody's saying they're the best thing since sliced bread. I was at a place last year where they sort shirts, and they not only sort them in the warehouse by customer, but they also sort them in size. So when the customer gets it, size 18 at the bottom, then 17, 16, 15, 14, and they sort by color and all the rest. So when it arrives at your store, everything is ready for you to unpack. You don't have to do any thinking. And they slip the shirts in these pouches, and this pouch sorter brings the shirts in the right order to your dispatch. Certainly got a lot of potential in the clothing industry. This is a shoe sorter, sort any shape and size. As long as they're not round. We've got a shoe sorter lying at one of the pharmaceutical companies, and they get these Chinese boxes that are rounded at the bottom. The round boxes climb up the shoes, and then we have real issues. Quite interesting to watch one of these shoe sorter when it misses the target. Crossbelt sorter. We're doing a crossbelt sorter at the moment that'll be running at just below 3 meters a second, and that is fast, 15,000 units an hour, and very little limit on size. And there you can see what an ideal sorting facility looks like at a courier, some cross-dock facility. And you say, well, is this the way things are going to go in the future? Are we going to have traditional sorters, which have been around years? This is a Bombay sorter that you can see. And we got tilt tray, push arm, 101 different types of sorters. But I thought I'd show you this because this is about the best sorter I've seen in the last year or two. So these little robots run around. You can have a hole in the floor wherever you want it with a chute at the other end of the hole. So they put the stuff on the little robot and it goes and puts it down any hole. You want more capacity, you just add more of these things. This particular one running at about 12 to 14,000 units an hour. It doesn't always work like you planned. Sainsbury put in a fully automated warehouse. As a matter of fact, they put in 4 of them, all at once, in top secret that nobody was allowed to know about them. They switched them on, and what happened is on the conveyor and on the sorter, they jumbled the product up. So you would have, I don't know, a toaster and canned beans all coming down the conveyor at the same time. So those would all come down the conveyor at the same time. And so they put their rolltainers at the end there, and then they thought, well, shit, we can't just send toasters and canned beans all mixed together in the store, because how's the store going to sort this all out? So then they put rows of rolltainers down all over the place, and they did a manual sort at the bottom of each conveyor. So that is somewhat of a problem if you don't get your design right. Good ideas and good automation doesn't always work. Oops. Of course, our warehouses are complicated enough without having to verify and check that whatever we did was right. And if you look at this here, this is the new pharmaceutical code that will be on all pharmaceuticals within the next year or two. It's already law in Europe, it hasn't come to South Africa, but it's coming. So every bottle of pharmaceuticals will have a serial number, a unique serial number. And if you have to track those, life becomes really difficult. RFID been around a long time, nobody's ever got it to work, but it is a great idea. Bluetooth, that's Bluetooth 5, which is fantastic, but this seems to be the future that'll replace RFID. And this is BLE beacons, Bluetooth low energy, which are cheap, and you can actually find them. We've tried, I must tell you, I must have had 50 customers who come to us and said, please put RFID all around our warehouse, and we're going to wave a magic wand, and we're going to tell you exactly what's in every location in the warehouse. But nobody's actually got it to work yet. But the Bluetooth's got potential. I think Bluetooth will be the answer in the future. This is an interesting machine. Because of the need for serial number scanning, the manufacturers have all started developing equipment that'll check each and every product. So here you've got your pharmaceuticals. This machine throws them on a belt. There's a special system in here that lines the things up one by one after the other. There's glass bottom so it can scan all sides. It scans all sides and puts it back into a bin on the other side. So here's a machine that does 100% check with no humans involved. Remember I showed you that A-frame, and you say, oh, you're going to say to me, well, what use is an A-frame for pharmaceuticals if you can't do serial number tracking? Well, here they have got cameras, and as the product drops out of the A-frame, they scan every single side, and at a speed of only about 30,000 an hour, they haven't got to that 60,000 an hour yet. They can scan every single product into its bin on its serial number. So what is it about using existing equipment? We've seen lots of guys talking about using drones to take stock and all sorts of existing equipment around to do the job better. Automation hasn't really grown in South Africa. I mean, I saw my first automated warehouse in about 1980. 1990s, they started more of them. 2000, but more automation. 2010, microprocessors started getting cheaper, but then the rand got offset by that. 2020s, yeah, we're getting it there. We're getting robotics, and things are happening. But I think the real growth in automation is when we see AI, and I'm going to talk quite a bit about AI now. So I think we'll see an explosion of automation when we've got AI running. But this is quite interesting. This is according to CNN Money, who will be replaced by automation. So they're saying if you're a firefighter, if you're a clergy or a photographer or a doctor, and I'm not sure about that. I think computers will do better diagnosis than any doctor. And they've actually done some research and shown that that's absolutely true. They had a whole lot of specialists, GPs and computers, and they fed in all these, they had, I think, 100 odd people, and they fed in all these ailments, and the computer did better than the specialist, and a hell of a lot better than the ordinary physician. So maybe they got it wrong, but they're saying you've got a 90% chance of being replaced if you're a taxi driver, a fisherman. I guess there won't be any fish. I don't know where they get that from. A baker, I don't know why. I assume a robot will do the baking, etc. There are some other predictions. Your accountant will no longer have his job. I don't think anybody will cry about that. Your auditor, your forecaster, for sure, will replace that with AI. Your buyer, your clerical staff, your receptionist, your forklift driver, none of them are going to have a job. Your picker, well, maybe. Your truck loader, your truck driver, or maybe not. Your IT guy, your maintenance guy will certainly have a job. I don't know about you, you'll have to ask. So how do we keep these robots working? Or will we have to have humans to keep them working? Or will the robots keep us working? Maybe the robots are more likely to fix us than we are to fix them. This is interesting. This is a supplier of materials handling equipment. And with your materials handling equipment, you get one of these whole gizmogazers. And it's connected through to an iPad. And you go and do your maintenance. You tell it, guy overseas is sitting at a control station, can see what this maintenance guy is doing. And he actually talks the guy through the maintenance. Now, this exists already right now. Talks him through the maintenance. So your maintenance technician doesn't need to be highly skilled. He can just look through a periscope and talk to the guy who's on the other side, and they can have feedback and tell you not to touch that and push that and do that. Well, maybe there's some things in life that aren't worth automating. We can discuss that. So is it just about improving? In the warehouse, lots of stuff to improve. Just take a common forklift lead acid battery. We've got better high frequency chargers. We can have high speed charging, which I don't believe in. I think that's the worst idea, but we can add air agitation, which helps mix. We can have auto filling, auto monitoring. We can have better changing of batteries. All of that, and our old-fashioned lead acid battery gets a lot less. So we go from 1,000 cycles to 1,500 cycles, maybe even 2,000 cycles. Then we got something new, lithium power, and it's still very expensive, but geez, it's not. So we can replace our horrible lead acid batteries with lithium-ion batteries, and away we go. And in the future, there's 101 other types of batteries coming. I don't know. I have no idea what all these things are. I just pulled them off the internet. But there's lots of different batteries coming that we do know. But this is an exciting one. And I think for forklifts and in the warehouse, this is going to be the future. Supercapacitors. And they've already started using them. So there's an automatic guided vehicle with a supercapacitor at the bottom. You charge up these supercapacitors, and it'll give you about a 15-minute operating time. But by putting inductive charging underground in the wire, you can actually charge this thing while it's operational. And the interesting part is McLaren are using them in their Formula One cars as their reserve energy rather than batteries. So it's not science fiction. Hydrogen fuel cells, there's quite a few warehouses running with them in the States. Haven't been that successful, but they run off hydrogen, which they turn into electricity. And our buildings, well, we don't have warehouses like that, but have a look at this warehouse. You can see the trucks on the left. This is Nike's new warehouse in Belgium. And who says it has to look like a square box? It's a little different to what we would commonly envisage as a warehouse. Just have a look. I really wonder how they feed all these plants. Love to go visit it. So the old warehouse where we put columns in, this is Builder's Warehouse when they were building it. And you can see these columns. That's quite a big span. That's about 28 meters. You know, is that the warehouse of the future? Or is this? We had them around since the 1970s. We put up the first one of these in 1990 for Sassel. And of course, you can go much higher, and you don't need columns. There's a lot of things you don't need. You don't need structural engineers because it just comes like this and it gets sheeted, goes up much faster. The best advantage of all on these rack-supported buildings is you can write it off as equipment, so there's big tax benefits. You depreciate over 3 years, maybe 5 years. And we can now go up to 50 meters high, and that is high. And the warehouses are definitely getting bigger. This is one we did in Dubai, which has 75,000 pallets and freezer at minus 28, minus 30 degrees, and outside is plus 50 degrees. That's not the actual issue. The big issue is outside there's 100% humidity. That's a nightmare. Because the moment you start cooling it down, you end up with ice everywhere. Of course, we're building these buildings a lot faster. Tilt-up construction. I would say 60% of the new warehouses are going up with tilt-up, which allows you to build much faster. This is Disney's warehouse, surprise, surprise, in Lutterworth in England. And they just made it look nice by just a bit of painting. So it's a decent place to work. This is plant room from Google. I mean, why can't we have plant rooms that look like that? And of course, we may not need warehouses because we're all going to be working from home anyhow. What about some of the green stuff we need in our warehouses? So solar, it hasn't really taken off much in South Africa because of the tax benefits. In places like Germany, where they had big tax benefits initially, everybody put solar everywhere. I was at a warehouse from a company called Fronius 2 years ago, and they not only make power during the day from their solar, but they produce hydrogen as well, so that they can run 24 hours a day, and they use the hydrogen at night to make electricity. There's a nice example where they actually covered the car park in solar. I like that because getting up on the roof of the warehouse is quite difficult. And of course, we have better lighting. This is an addressable LED light with a passive infrared, switches off when nobody's around. Domes on the roof to let in light, and so on. And then of our costs, clearly within the warehouse, 60% of our supply chain costs are probably on the trucks. And this was my first love. It's what I studied at university. So I thought I had to show you some of the new trucks on the market. Bigger, better trucks. And they're typical of a modern truck and something that really hasn't arrived in South Africa. Low to the ground, multi-deck. Multi-deck we have, but nothing low like this to the ground, which allows you a lot more capacity in the height. Look at that. Look at the capacity they get out of that truck. Or drop bodies, which allow you to preload and get rid of all the rubbish out of your staging areas. And bigger trucks. This is the Eurocombi, and we tend to follow the rest of the world. So if they've gone to 25.25 meters long, why shouldn't we? Nice truck. This fifth wheel around here, actually, as you go around the corner, it separates out further. So although it looks like a continuous truck now, when you go around the corner, this bit gets bigger, which is quite a clever way of beating the road ordinance. This thing will load from the back all the way through to the front. There's quite a nice combination as well. Also a Eurocombi. This is side and rear loading. For those of you who can't make up your mind. And of course, electric trucks, bound to see them come. Although at the price of oil today, at $25 a barrel, I think it's put back the electric car quite a few years. Who wants to buy an electric car when you can buy petrol so cheap? So the next step is, what about the warehouse management system and the warehouse control system and warehouse execution system, which is the in-buzz thing at the moment? What's happening? Well, SAP still dominate the market. I mean, SAP are twice the size of their nearest opposition. Manhattan is probably just on pure warehouse management. Look at its turnover versus SAP. So it's all about SAP, and SAP is all about their new product. Well, it's not so new, it's about 6-7 years old. EWM, great product, just quite expensive. And then in the control system to operate these automated warehouses, we have the suppliers of equipment like Knapp and Schaefer and Jungheinrich. Those are the big suppliers in South Africa. They all have warehouse control systems. They also all have warehouse management systems. And then the SAP of this world have launched their own control system. So is Manhattan, so is High Jump. So the guys who supply the WMS are trying to control the world by moving downwards. And the guys who supply the equipment are trying to control the world by moving upwards and supplying all the other stuff, which is quite interesting that they're all trying to control everything. And then added to that, we've got a whole lot of guys doing nice apps, which will help you in your warehouse. If you've got a lousy warehouse management system, well, you can always resort to using apps to do stuff better. I guess the real question is, what is the big game changer? Is it artificial intelligence? Certainly, there's a lot of guys marketing forecasting software in using AI, and it's proving to work really well. So all the days of all these forecasting systems, which never ever worked, we now have a method of making forecasting work. A lot of optimization is coming, decision making, still in its early stage. So machine learning, which is just a nice way of talking about AI, will do lots of things. I know somebody who's working with one of the auditing firms, and they've developed machine learning to do all their auditing, and they're hoping they'll never have to do another audit in their life very soon. So I think this is quite an interesting graph. So on the left-hand side, we've plotted intelligence. At the bottom on the x-axis, we've plotted time, so y-axis intelligent time. And we're saying this is the growth of artificial intelligence. So at present, we sort of have the brains of a cockroach within artificial. We can make somebody walk, we can wave at them. In a year or two, we'll be somewhere in the intelligence of my dog, who's not a very bright dog, but you'll get there. And then a year or two later, we're going to be at the intelligence level of a typical politician, which is fairly low on the scale of intelligence. Then we get to sort of Einstein area. Probably a week later, you can see we're now growing really fast. And then, that's an interesting question. I don't think anybody knows, okay? So clearly this is not any graph that anybody knows about, but it is an interesting graph. And here's two different opinions. We've got Jeff Bezos, who says that artificial intelligence is waffled away, is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and it's going to make life better, and it's going to make your work environment better, and you're going to have a better career because of it. Everything's going to be good. The right-hand side, we've got Elon Musk, who says, mark my word, AI is far more dangerous than nukes. Up to you to make that decision. I guess the real question is who can adapt faster. Is it your company? Is it somebody else's company? And the ultimate supply chain may be very different to what we envisage. Yeah. Who knows? We might all have 3D printers in our home. Never need to go buy any more clothes. Certainly no more shoes. You'll just print whatever you want. So you'll buy some software and you'll print stuff. And there's not a hell of a lot that you can't print. Certainly you can print guns, you can print clothes, you can print aeroplane parts. Don't think anybody's invented other than food, I suppose. So the real question is, can we adapt in our warehouse or will we die? Companies like Blockbuster, who thought videos would stay in business forever. Toys R Us, who didn't go onto the internet, or Kodak, who ignored digital printing. They didn't die because they weren't strong enough. I mean, these were rich, wealthy companies. Kodak at one stage was the richest company in America. They didn't adapt. And there's a few examples in South Africa. Edgar's didn't adapt. South African Airways can argue why they didn't adapt, but they didn't adapt. Is the warehouse of the future something with no human? What's going to happen to you when you're not needed? That's an interesting question. Will you just have a lot more leisure time? Can you just sit and have fun rather than working? Or is our future a little bit different to that? I'm sort of 10 minutes early, so I've got some of you guys want to ask some questions. We've got 10 minutes to do that. So let me repeat that same slide. It's not the strongest of the species that supply, not the most intelligent. It's the one that is most adaptable to change. And that's the end from me.
So are there some questions out there?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, Martin. It's Hilton here.
Hi, Hilton.
No, Hilton, you're in London.
I am. A shout out to all my South African friends there. I hope you guys are all keeping well. Thanks very much. I thought it would be interesting to join your webinar. That's great. I was just wondering, of course, I've had a hindsight of being able to see quite two different worlds. I've been in the UK now for 1.5 years, having been in South Africa all my life and missing it tremendously, of course. But what do you think maybe are some of the main challenges facing the distribution activities in South Africa nowadays, if you look past what's happened now in the last year or two and what you predict happening in the future?
I don't think we have fundamentally the distribution infrastructure in South Africa is quite sound. I mean, our transport system works in the private industry, that is. Our warehouses work. Clearly after COVID, there's going to be huge challenges of a lot of companies that just won't exist anymore. So, you know, unemployment is the biggest issue I guess South Africa has. You know, can the government control that? And if we look at all this automation, is that going to, or we just need to move people to different types of jobs. So the menial jobs in warehouses are going to get less and less and less, for sure. But are there other jobs that we can create? You know, the countries that have low unemployment traditionally are the ones that are the most automated. So it's an interesting, difficult problem. But fundamentally, I think the government is a different world where the supply chains just don't work. But in the private industry, supply chains work.
Yeah, if you allow me, it leads me to my last question, if you don't mind, is that, of course, I see here in the UK market being a very developed market, there is already interest in robots. I was at a press conference and I got asked the questions, do I think robots and IA, will that replace the traditional conveyor automation, which you and I have been doing for many, many years? And of course, representing a company that does a lot of conveyor automation, I said, not everything suits everybody. But we get asked the question very often about return on investment. And if you look at the South African environment, we have to compete internationally. We have to drive up our own internal productivity, but we do have to balance that with labor. So how long do you think return on investments larger companies accept when you introduce the concepts of this degree of automation? What do they normally feel comfortable to allow for a payback period for ROI in South Africa? I know here in the UK, even past 5 years is a bit of a difficult sell. I don't know, what is it like? How are you experiencing it now there?
So there's different drivers here. Okay. So the drivers in South Africa aren't about so much about replacing labor and therefore getting payback. The drivers, you wait for a company, we worked for a company that had a 4-month strike. The attitude after that strike was, guys, I don't care what it cost. I want automation. I want to halve my labor force. So that's the one driver. The second driver is theft. Some of the guys spend as much money on preventing theft in processes, checking, rechecking, checking it again, as they do on the actual labor that does the work. And clearly anything automated generally can't steal. I wouldn't be surprised one day if it does learn to, but at the moment, not. So those are the big drivers. But also what's happening, yeah, to counter that, we're at 20 Rand to the dollar, or who knows what we can afford. But we're also getting prices dropping of automation dramatically over the next few years. So all of those need to be sort of weighed up.
Great. No, thanks very much. It's a complex challenge.
Nothing simple.
Makes sense what you say.
But I mean, I'm not going to show you pictures now of guys walking around with wheelbarrows. I don't think it would be very interesting, even if it's the most viable.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you.
We've got a question here. Chibuzo, I don't know if your question was answered in this previous discussion. What are examples or case studies or baby steps towards warehouse automation, especially for low to middle income countries which are resource challenged? How should we go about thinking about it?
Yep. So, you know, nobody's going to put in automation if they move 10 items an hour. But you take a Vodacom or an MTN who are pumping out 70, 80,000, 100,000 phones a day. There is no way on earth they can get that out of their facilities without some form of automation. Take, you know, a ShopRite distribution system. You just can't get those volumes out of your facility without some level of automation. So, you know, it depends on lots of things. It depends on labor stability, theft, as we said, but big time on volume. So as guys centralize, and there's more and more people centralizing, and volumes start going through the roof, you know, you need to take a different attitude, because sometimes you just can't get it out, man.
I have a question, Tonya.
Paul, is that you with a question?
Yeah, please. Martin, at the moment, what sort of percentage of warehousing in South Africa can really justify the expense in terms of the volumes and throughput?
You're saying what percentage do I think can be automated?
You know, if we took the whole of warehousing and distribution in the country, it's 100%. What percentage is sort of as a big enough volume, throughput, velocity?
In number of warehouses, it's small, but in volume, so the guys who do high volumes and all the rest, probably 5–10%. But, you know, I know I show you in a presentation like this, all the nice stuff. I mean, I'm not going to show you all the traditional warehouse stuff. It's not that interesting. But there's a lot of room to make traditional warehousing techniques, which I showed at the beginning of the presentation, by better scanning, by better control, by better, you know, that's not automation. That's just intelligent use of existing technology.
Yeah.
Better warehouse management system. So if you said, which guys are using all that, I would say 60–70% of all warehouse are using scanning, voice, things like that. Of my clients, I would say more than half are using voice.
Thanks, Martin.
Yeah, we're more or less there.
Gamu had some questions.
Okay, one more, let's go.
And she's not afraid to talk. It's got to do with the pharmaceutical industry. So Gamu, don't you want to put your questions forward for Martin?
Hello. Thanks, Martin. This is a brilliant presentation from you. And working in a multinational company, you hear of all these innovations and you see them from afar. And yeah, it was good to hear from someone who's been involved. And yeah, privately, I've been also chatting with Daniel. So my questions were on the trucks. It was interesting to see, you know, the trucks, and they'd asked, would these trucks be having like detection sensors? Because in the pharma products, it works much more. You find that the manufacturing will be a bit distant from where the warehousing is being done. and most of the manufacturing sites, they don't have the capacity to have internal warehouses. So our products, mostly in pharma, they're transported under quarantine. And these are pharma products, the tests are done afterwards. You don't want to lose the products to any consumer out there before they are released from the market. So with this innovation, this is very brilliant. And I'm just thinking, we've got so much challenges of hijacks, theft in South Africa is big, it's a challenge. So what do you think of our market? When do you see our companies that are in logistics, adopting these, I'm sure of multinationals that are out there prepared to pay for this, but it's just not available. Or maybe I don't know.
Well, I think it's certainly available, and a lot of the multinationals already have that technology. A-frames, you'll see DSV have one of those mini load systems. There's quite a, guys like, so there's quite a few of them that have this technology, especially in the pharmaceutical industry. And especially, you don't want to send some guy with a heart condition some Viagra. You want to make sure that you pick the right product, and there's no better way than doing that with an automated system. So it's there, the technology is there. The technology is easy to come by. As somebody said, the payback's a little more difficult to come by, especially with so many issues. But if you want the accuracy and you've got a lot of product to go out, it's simple. Some of the stuff's not expensive. An A-frame, for example, is not an expensive machine. And so you've got a machine that costs under 10 million that can pump out 70% of your volume probably in an hour a day, which changes the entire outlook on life. I mean, you don't get much these days for 10 million.
Wow. Okay, Gomu, does it help you?
Yeah, it does help. I think he's saying it's already out there. Maybe it's a matter of from within companies or asking on what they want, because I know I'm going to mention some companies, like some of these companies, DSV, we have them here in South Africa, and if they trucks like this in other countries, it's a matter of asking for this, and they will provide local here.
Well, we can hope so in time. So Martin, are you okay with us putting up your contact details for anybody that's got any questions?
Of course, anytime, guys, contact me. Drop me an email. We can have a Skype or Zoom call anytime. Happy to chat to all of you. Not all at the same time, but
but everybody.
Anytime. So just martin@ils.co.za.
Okay, we'll share the webinar along with your contact details.
Great. Please feel free to and tell me I'm talking rubbish or you like what I'm saying, and all the rest.
No, I'm sure that there's definitely no you're talking rubbish nonsense there. And just a mention of your upcoming workshop, Improving Operational Productivity in Warehouses. So look out for that. The details are on the SAPEX website.
So that's more about the conventional warehouse, just to make it work better.
Yeah.
It's not about this fancy technology.
No, it's just making what you have work for you better. Okay, perfect. Martin, thank you so much for your time. We really, really appreciate you taking time out to do the webinar for us. It was really insightful and interesting. Gives us lots of food for thought. I think we continually are gathering information or being given information that not only scares us, but makes us think and challenges us to think completely out of the box as to how we can do business better. But I shall wrap things up. Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining us. I trust that this was of value to you all, and watch out for all our other webinars and events on the SAPEX website. Take care, everybody, and good afternoon.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Hi, Josh. Hi, Josh. Hi, Josh.